Story 1. I like seeing different perspectives and learning random things I would never have thought of. Story 2. People fascinate me and Reddit gives me access to all sorts of people. Story 3. I do not really use social media other than Reddit. The idea of following people or seeing pictures of their lives seems parasocial and unhealthy to me. I contact people I want updates from directly, either by direct message or in person. I have a Blue Sky account, but I rarely use it. On Reddit, I do not follow any people. I follow subreddits for the hobbies, topics, and products I am most interested in. I can stay up to date on issues affecting those topics and on how people feel about them. I can engage with people about those topics. I also follow a few variety subreddits such as Out of the Loop and Explain Like I'm 5 for Spice, and it is entertaining and educational without feeling like too much brain rot. It provides exposure to other people's ideas without being as parasocial and gives you much more control over which topics you opt into so you can avoid harming your mental health. You can stay up to date on news that affects you without getting trapped in the sensationalist news cycle, which is also bad for your mental health. Note: I am only in 10 subreddits right now. Story 4. A dopamine hit from receiving upvotes and, occasionally, from researching niche topics that the internet does not answer well. Story 5. I have a lot of downtime at work and do not want to bring a book. Story 6. My goal is to spread positivity in this dark world, to offer perspective on similar experiences I have had, and sometimes to laugh and have conversations. Story 7. To confirm my belief that the majority of people are idiots. Story 8. Every now and then you will find a post from 10 years ago that fixes whatever problem I am having. Story 9. As a personal art gallery, I display materials related to booty. Story 10. I got rid of all my other social media accounts. I have learned so much being here, met more of my community, and find most of the communities I follow incredibly engaging. I use social media mostly out of boredom. Now everything is in one app. Story 11. I can be who I really am and interact with people who share my interests. Story 12. Reddit is my go-to for real discussions. The depth of information and unique perspectives are unmatched. Story 13. I love using Reddit for the diverse range of topics and discussions. It is like a treasure trove of knowledge. Story 14. Right now, I like to talk about the best movies of the year and to discuss the major annual film awards. The AskReddit subreddit is my favorite during late fall and winter because most people there have seen many of the contenders for the Academy Awards, the Golden Globe Awards, and the British Academy of Film and Television Arts Awards, so we are all interested to see which films and people will win. I am not into sports, but Academy Awards season is the closest equivalent I have to that kind of collective viewing and discussion with fellow fans. I also frequently visit the Millennials subreddit to chat with others my age, since we have much in common and share a unique perspective on how things have shifted over the last 20 to 25 years. Story 15. I like it because you can find anything. Advice that feels real, oddly specific questions answered by experts, or random late-night stories that make you feel less alone. It is not perfect, of course. There is drama, arguments, and the occasional know-it-all. But if you find the right communities, it can feel kind of cozy, like you have a group of internet friends who understand your niche interests. Story 16. If I need an answer to a question, this site has been my most reliable resource compared to others. Story 17. Anonymity on Reddit allows more genuine conversations and is refreshing compared to other platforms. Story 18. I learn a lot from people here. Reddit reminds me that people are generally good and cool. Story 19. At this point, I need a place to scream into the fucking void. I am currently drunk, crying, angry, and just fucking done. Reddit appears to be the safest and most welcoming space for these emotions, with little to no hate. Story 20 years ago, I used several different websites to discover new things online. I eventually learned that most of those sites simply reposted content from Reddit. Story 21. It is my go-to place to discuss or read up on my favorite topics and interests. Story 22. Sometimes to argue and dive into niche interests. Story 23. Mostly boredom, loneliness, and talking about random things, and being able to discuss what I care about. On a deeper level, when I post advice here, I do it for the harsh advice I know I won't get in real life, because no one usually criticizes me as a person. My parents and the rest of my family don't really care what kind of person I am as long as I'm successful, but I care. I get that criticism a lot because, from what I can tell, I'm too negative and too blunt even for this application. Story 24. Interesting conversations. People do not seem as touchy as Facebook. I have actually learned things here. Story 25. A true melting pot of the best and worst people. It has the right amount of crazy to keep me hooked. Facebook, in my opinion, has been declining. Story 26. I enjoy reading, but sometimes books are not entertaining enough. Story 27. To learn about topics and people through their different opinions and views. Story 28. I would like to learn about cultural differences around the world. I am from Asia. Story 29. I lived on Reddit for years, lost access to my account, and forgot about it. Life became more serious, and I became less inclined to trust Reddit. Now I am back, and I can safely say it is the greatest time waster there is. Story 30. I was reading Reddit posts on my other social media accounts and decided to skip the middleman. Story 31. Honestly, it's the mix of real opinions, funny posts, and random knowledge. Story 32. To lurk, learn, or laugh in any order or combination. I thoroughly enjoy it here. Most importantly, I appreciate that there are no uninvited topics, images, or videos forced upon me. According to my settings, no cards. I only see what I subscribe to and click. Story 33. I have a streak of more than 600 days that I don't want to mess up. Story 34. Freedom of speech. I can express my opinions without being canceled or called weird by my friends. Story 35. Boredom when I am alone at night and cannot go to sleep yet. Seeing what topics are popular in my areas of interest. Story 36. I like it, and there are some really funny comments. I also see some big words I don't know. I look up the meaning and thank whoever taught me a new word or term. Story 37. 1. Adding my 2 cents. 2. Expressing the frustration from interacting with people by leaving cranky replies on posts. Story 38. It is better to use than other social media platforms for a variety of content. Story 39. There are people here with great senses of humor and impressive creativity. It is great to know there are other clever people out there making a difference. Story 40. Honestly, it provides intelligent responses. There are some that are not, but overall they are more serious and informative. Story 41. Need to know about something specific, no matter how old or rare. Use Reddit. Know a lot about a challenging topic, but nobody in your real life is interested or needs help with it. Use Reddit. Want to stay up to date on topics that interest you and get inspiration or different perspectives. Use Reddit. If you have no way to find out what's happening in subcultures you don't belong to, in countries on the other side of the world, in space, or in your own hometown, Reddit can help. It's an amazing potpourri of interesting people from all over the world. I hope artificial intelligence does not ruin it. Story 42. There are many communities, and the user interface makes it easy to follow comment threads. Story 43. To pass the time, Reddit is both more interesting and less addictive than other social networking apps. Story 44. I find it better to search the hive mind for advice and reviews than on other sites. The format is way better than traditional forums. Why wade through pages of chronological replies when you can sort by the best responses and follow the threads? Story 45. I refuse to use any other social media because it is like a never-ending magazine that I can comment on. Boobs. Story 46. Because I want to speak up and share my thoughts. It helps me feel heard. Simple as that. Story 47. I am shy in real life, but I like talking. Some of my friends know my Reddit account, so I created this account to say things I do not want them to know. Story 48. I do not get out much. Although I love my husband, he has his own friends to talk to, and I do not have anyone besides him. Story 49. I have long periods at work with nothing to do and no one to talk to. Story 50. I primarily use it when I am bored or want to look at car content. Story 51. To procrastinate disguised as thinking, I am communicating and sharing ideas with interesting people online. Story 52. To observe liberals' insanity and pain. The Reddit bubble has no impact on reality because it is a small group of the same people. It is entertaining. Story 53. Honestly, just another platform to search for things I cannot find anywhere else. Story 54. There is something for everyone, and the upvotes go straight to my head. Major aura. Story 55. X and Meta brands are not options for me, so you have one by default. Story 56. To read, relate to others, and vent about life and other things. Story 57. Habit. There was a time when it was a place for honest discussions. Nowadays you either agree with the hive mind or you are attacked by anonymous people who think insulting me makes them right. I am opposed to certain moral trends in society, and I am instantly labeled incel for expressing them. For example, I oppose promiscuity and believe human connection has been replaced by hedonism. It feels like an immune response. If I say that something is not right for certain reasons, I receive 2 to 3 insulting comments within 10 minutes. I would join any other platform where discussions are based on arguments, but I cannot find one. Story 58. Bedridden and dying. I would not put up with the puritanical moderators otherwise. Story 59. Feel connected to humanity without the burden of social media. Story 60. Ask for advice and be part of communities that are hard to find. I get to talk to and get help from other handspinners. I only know maybe 2 others, so it's great to see how other people do it. It's awesome. I hardly know anyone else who watches Grey's Anatomy or has read many historical romance novels, but here I have a place to talk about them. Story 61. It sounds like there is an implicit comparison to other similar areas on the internet here. I have some niche topics with active communities, for example niche games and hobbies. Some of these topics have other sites that may be larger or better, but the unique commentary here is interesting. I like having a downvote system. Some sites say they removed downvoting or negative voting because it makes people feel bad. However, if your post has 0 to 3 votes while others around you have 7 to 44 votes, that still indicates the same difference. At least downvoting feels more honest. Story 62. I love the specific subreddits and the experts who chime in on just about everything. You see a bad fall, and an orthopedic surgeon tells you what is probably broken and what needs to be done. You see a bad storm, and a meteorologist explains exactly how it happened. You see a bad movie, and a screenwriter points out what went wrong. Story 63. I love specific subreddits for everything from entertainment to sharing knowledge. General subreddits are more interesting for predation. Story 64. I like shows that few people in my life enjoy, so this is a place for me to talk about them. Story 65. It is the only social media application I have. I would not even call it that. Story 66. A variety of things. I use Reddit nearly every day to read other people's opinions on things I am considering. I also use it to raise topics that rarely get discussed online or in real life but affect me. I enjoy hearing perspectives from people who have experienced what I have, and I have found a community I can connect with. Despite how harsh people can be, I find it easier to meet people on Reddit than in real life. Story 67. Reddit has largely replaced individual forum websites, so we are all required to use it. Story 68. Do you know how people who give up smoking move to vaping? Well, Facebook and Instagram were my smoking. Story 69. To gossip and laugh and perhaps ask for opinions you could not ask from people you know. Story 70. The usual suspects are boredom and loneliness, but also niche subreddits, shared interests, and, if you are lucky, finding kinship with other members. Reddit is more about exchanging information than making friends. Story 71. It started as a way to follow my interests, but now that I comment, I find myself speaking freely, adding my thoughts and experiences. It has led to many arguments. I find that my ability to not take things to heart, for example telling people to have a good day after arguing with them about something arbitrary for 45 minutes, makes for interesting dialogue. I am really just trying to get to the bottom of things. When I find out I'm wrong, I admit it, which catches people off guard. My wife doesn't understand how I don't get mad, especially at people who go straight to insulting your intelligence. I don't know. I just find that stuff funny. Story 72. Honestly, I use Reddit because it's like the internet's living room, a place to learn random things, laugh at memes, and occasionally realize how little I know about the world. Story 73. I got tired of Facebook and Instagram calling me a pervert and banning me for no reason like so many others. Story 74. I can enjoy the illusion of human connection without any of the vulnerability required for real relationships. Story 75. I like how it works. I join a subreddit and I get what the subreddit shows me. I don't get tons of infuriating "look, you might like this too" recommendations designed to rile me up. People always criticize bubbles, but at least my self-chosen bubble keeps my mental health in place. Twitter and Instagram, with all their suggestions, constantly made me angry. Story 76. I am an unhappy person with no friends or romantic partners. I use Reddit to complain and to socialize by commenting on posts. Story 77. Keep up with topics that interest me and the source for jokes and humor. Story 78. I first joined because I was suffering from severe alcoholism, so I only visited forums about alcoholism. Then I learned a lot about reality television because I have watched it since 2008. Later, I followed pet and decorating topics. People on Reddit can be really kind when you are lonely. Loneliness was the main reason I joined. Story 79. A fucking asshole bought my favorite social media, and by the time there was a viable alternative, I was addicted to it. Story 80. It is probably a habit more than anything else at this point. It has largely lost any real value to me. Story 81. I got used to texting with someone throughout the day. Now that we do not text, I post on Reddit. This may sound silly, but I need a distraction that is not too distracting. Story 82. I am terrible at poker and charge clients to let me post inflammatory content about online poker, masquerading as marketing. Story 83. For its intended purpose, I only come here to ask questions, get answers, and see cat pictures. Story 84. I mainly use it to waste time and catch up on the news. It is a habit at this point. Story 85. The world has gone mad. I was hoping to find out what was going on, but then I discovered that Reddit is, in fact, Pandora's box. Story 86. To gather information about the world around me and to harmlessly harass, make jokes, and have fun. Story 87. I encounter racism, sexism, anti-racism, anti-sexism, homophobia, uninformed people, people with academic degrees, and pornography in a single app. Story 88. I'm still figuring out how to use it. I found a community that suits me, but I don't necessarily need their support. Story 89. My real-life friends don't like bitching about politics. Story 90. Exposure therapy for the trauma I experienced helped. Now it is kind of calm, to be honest. I learned the hard way not to chat with strangers via Reddit direct messages. Story 91. Boredom, loneliness, and staying up to date with news about my favorite sports team. Story 92. Because I do not have many people I can regularly socialize with in my offline life, being on here lets me interact with people more. It does not make up for socializing in real life, but it helps me fight loneliness. Story 93. At first, it was for "Am I the Asshole?" Now it is for pornography and my special interests. Story 94. This is a good source of information. The karma system is a good indicator of credibility. Story 95. I belong to many Christian subreddits, and I use Reddit to answer questions from new Christians about the faith. Story 96. I wanted to ask people about things, but I can't because I need karma, so I'm just answering random posts here. It's fun, though. Story 97. I am hooked on Reddit. Provides me with a sense of community at home. Story 98. I took myself off the main social media platforms because I hated seeing how horrible my friends actually are. At least here, I don't know the trolls personally. Story 99. Comments are very funny, and Reddit figures out amazing things. I love this community despite the rough ride. Story 100. It helps me with methods and success stories, such as when I am manifesting. Story 101. Many users here are a bit too sanctimonious for my tastes, but I use the site because it is a good source of information. Since people with lives and jobs different from mine use the site, I gain insights from their points of view. Story 102. Entertainment, information, and occasionally irritating Reddit users. Story 103. It's the only place online where I get a good variety of things I'm interested in. Story 104. I want to share useful neuroscience information, particularly about autism. This week's research shows that autism is associated with reduced levels of excitatory amino acid transporter 2, the protein responsible for clearing the neurotransmitter glutamate. This finding makes many associated comorbidities easier to understand. Story 105. Entertainment for when I am having insomnia and a sleep aid has not kicked in. Story 106. I am lonely and miserable. I mostly cannot talk to women, so I come here for interaction. It may seem creepy, but oh well. Story 107. This is the only social media I can use that is not monitored. As far as I know, it does not bother my parents because they limit everything. Story 108. Giveaways, hustle ideas, non-political cringe content, and game tips. That is about it. Story 109. Less infested by fascists than other social media platforms. Story 110. It's a way to hear a ton of different ideas and opinions. Most of them are extremely left-wing angry rants, unfortunately. I like it mostly to talk about video games and finance. Story 111. I use it only for specific communities and I am happy with that. I do not read global or popular content. Story 112. Seeing all the freaks makes me feel better about my life. Story 113. It used to be cool, unique, and ahead of the news. Still, it's better than most other things to do on the internet. Story 114. It's like a cocktail party. Mingle, join, or overhear different conversations and topics. Meet cool people. Avoid the drunks. Every party has them. Story 115. I avoid talking to people because my social skills are so poor that I do not bother speaking with others in real life. Story 116. I find Reddit better than Twitter. Twitter tends to annoy me and is full of misinformation. To be honest, Reddit is my favorite application for socializing. Story 117. Reddit, for me, is literally the hub of the internet. I come here mostly when I'm bored, to stay in the cultural loop. Read the news, see trends, enjoy memes, explore niche topics, and share stories, experiences, and ideas. I come for answers and opinions. It reminds me of the early days of the internet with the randomness of StumbleUpon and the archival nature of old gaming forums. It's like walking through a big city. You can find everything from the cleanest streets to the dirtiest alleyways. There are small districts and neighborhoods where people gather and travel to and fro. Unfortunately, I fall into the trap of arguing with people. I think many users here are bots, and I can be a real jerk. I'm often ashamed of it because I try to be righteous and sometimes fail. Still, sometimes you have to speak your mind, correct someone who is wrong, or vent your frustrations. Reddit is a place where you can check yourself and others. That's the beauty of an open forum. It's a small microcosm of the wider world. Story 118. I'm on a social media hiatus, and this is just enough to give me a little fix without getting lost in doom scrolling. I still don't have a clue what's going on locally, and I like that. Story 119. I use Reddit because it is easy to find people who share your interests, get advice anonymously, stay updated on news, and see funny or interesting content. There is a community for everything. Story 120. Apparently, I can be banned for reasons I cannot figure out. Story 121. Gossiping about reality television shows because none of my real-life friends watch the same ones I do. Laughing out loud. Story 122. I enjoy learning from international subreddits. I like posts about hobbies, opinions, perspectives, and nuggets of historical knowledge that lead me to research more. I frequent this app and have abandoned all other social media. Story 123. The older I get, the less I like Instagram and Facebook. I just started posting a couple of weeks ago, And I like that it's anonymous. I can get real advice without having to like stupid pictures of people's kids, pets, or other things. Story 124. I use it mainly to keep up with gaming communities or to doomscroll because I prefer it to most social media. It passes the time but is easy to put down when needed and is not as addictive as, say, TikTok or Instagram. Story 125. Mental masturbation. Fun fact. I just noticed my Reddit account is old enough to vote now. Story 126. Censorship. Prejudice. No one meets face to face anymore. Story 127. To pass the time, I look for answers to my questions and information about my niche interests. Story 128. Mostly boredom, but I met my girlfriend here, so it kind of worked out for me. Story 129. Because Reddit has everything, from wisdom to pure chaos. Story 130. I started using it because I needed help making my first sale on Poshmark, so I joined that subreddit to get tips. Today I stick around for various reasons, but mostly boredom and entertainment. Story 131. I have come to loathe every other social media platform, including television. Reddit seems the most genuine of the platforms, and I love that about it. The artificial intelligence algorithm appears to be much more hands-off than on many other platforms. Story 132. Being a ringworld protector is a stressful job, and Reddit helps distract me when I'm having downtime. Story 133. I like hearing about or seeing posts that some might consider mundane, simple everyday things like a picture of someone's breakfast. I don't know why, but it makes me feel good. Story 134. My husband Daryl said I needed to get on the internet and connect to the wireless network. Story 135. Answers to questions from real people like a living Google. Story 136. To learn about things I didn't know, especially the comments. Story 137. To participate in the social life of North America, specifically Canada, Quebec, and Montreal online. Story 138. Learn, research, explore, and stay updated on local and global current events. Story 139. Because I have an open mind and like reading different opinions. You are all wild, and I love you for it. Do not try to find me in real life. Story 140. I have a main account where I have joined communities I like. No politics or sad content. It is a happy place where I can enjoy and explore my hobbies. If the main page becomes overwhelming, you can curate a page like I do. Story 141. Your mileage may vary, but I find it the least stressful of all social media. Story 142. Tired of seeing only family and friends. At first that was the reason, but it turned into hating those who own social media companies. Now I just like the anonymity of Reddit, but I still hate those owners, including Reddit's owner. Story 143. Entertainment when I cannot stand the news or poor movies and television shows anymore. Story 144. I watched a Just Vidman video about Reddit and I've been hooked ever since. Story 145. I enjoy talking with people from different places. The diversity is fascinating. The pictures are gorgeous. Story 146. It's complicated. I used to have someone I could debate with and support, but they died, which caused me to push people away. Reddit helps me voice my opinions and contribute where I can, and I don't have to worry about people dying. Story 147. A cure for boredom and a way to connect with others in a world of social isolation. Thanks to everyone's reflex of burying their heads when things get rough, social media is all I have left. Of the options available, this site seems to have the closest thing to an intelligent user base, although the more popular it becomes, the less true that is. I have a feeling this site appeals to many of us who used to have theological debates in coffee shops before everyone retreated into their sad little mud huts. Story 148. I want to know what other people think about the movies I watch. Whenever I ask, they give a generic answer. Story 149. I work at a computer all day. I browse Reddit on one screen and use the others for work, which makes the day less monotonous. Story 150. I want to talk to people who are into philosophy, psychology, fiction, and random 2 a.m. questions without involving vulgar language. I've received a lot of direct messages, but none of them are twisted enough to catch my interest. I want to learn new things, enhance my thinking abilities, and absorb as much knowledge as I can. For now, that's enough. Story 151. It is a bit less brain dead compared to Instagram or, God forbid, TikTok. I do not have it. Story 152. It is the only place where I can hear a variety of people sharing their thoughts and opinions on topics relevant to me. Twitter is a cesspool. I work from home and have no friends or social life, so I do not get to interact with people in person. Story 153. I am bored and want to connect with people who share my medical issues. There are photos of cats and bats here. Story 154. You were never worthless. The system that judged you was. Its inability to register your capacity made it ignorant, and you mistook its limits for yours. People often feel useless or worthless, not because they are, but because they compare themselves to what others can see, not to who they fully are. The parts that do not fit the system get ignored, and that makes people think it is their fault. I wrote a short book about this. It is available on Amazon. Story 155. It is either Quora or Reddit for me. You know how that ends. Story 156. To replace Russian social media that became so bad with advertisements that you could not scroll 4 posts without seeing the same advertisement for a scam from a wealthy streamer or other harmful nonsense. Story 157. I seek a sense of community because my real-life social circles have crumbled as I approach 40. Story 158. 4chan is difficult and annoying. Reddit is easier to use, and its community is not as toxic as 4chan's. Story 159. These are the most vicious commenters on the internet. Spend an afternoon on the Reddit subreddit roast me. It's gold. Story 160. At first I was trying to promote my YouTube channel. As I grew older, I realized creating YouTube videos was unrealistic. Now I use it to get answers and enjoy reading. Story 161. Price hunting and reviewing tools with people. Occasional knowledge drops are worth reading. There are memes and porn. Story 162. I like reading stories about the lives of other people. It makes me realize I am not doing so badly. Story 163. I like to chat, and Reddit is a useful tool to get people to listen to me. It does not matter whether they upvote or downvote. Either shows that people have received the message. Story 164. It is fun and you see other opinions. It is potentially the most prominent use of social media. Story 165. Facebook is dead, Instagram sucks, and TikTok is toxic. Story 166. I stopped using other social media because it harmed my mental health. Reddit feels like a happy medium. It still has some low-quality content, but I remain somewhat connected to the world and have much more control over my feed. Story 167. I enjoy talking with many niche experts and learning about everything here. Story 168. To see what people are saying about things. Information, fun and rest. Story 169. Ask questions like Quora, but with different rules and moderators. Story 170. I have to have something to do when I am taking a shit and I do not play games on my phone. Story 171. Discourse can be confrontational at times, but usually someone will provide an explanation or a deep dive into the post in the comments, and a conversation follows. You can actually learn new things. Other social media, such as Facebook and similar sites, is mostly silly jokes, which is fair enough, but there is only so much childish content I can subject myself to. Story 172. My therapist's bills are too high, so I vent here for free. Story 173. I suppose I enjoy seeing different perspectives from people. Story 174. I do not have much to do at work, and it looks better to scroll or type on a personal computer instead of a phone. Story 175. I have been here a long time, and it has been a part of my day for most of it. I left forums for this place and still use old Reddit while I can. Story 176. You really want to know? You are not going to like my answer. Story 177. I read about internet drama to feel better about my own existence, get news, and discuss topics that interest me. Story 178. I am addicted to sharing my meaningless opinions in the hope that it helps someone and makes them feel good, resulting in a burst of serotonin for me. Please send help. Story 179. Everything began with me standing in front of the freezer. I was so bored that I thought exploring Reddit would be less boring. I was wrong. Story 180. Interactive hobbies, garden ideas, book recommendations, and adult content. Story 181. I joined the Star Trek Bulletin Board in 1997 and love discussing topics online. Story 182. I love how conversational it is compared to other social media. It feels like I am actually communicating with people rather than just scrolling through brain rot. Story 183. I want to hold the record for consecutive days as a basement dweller. Story 184. I do not even know anymore. I go through periods when I want to delete my account and times when it seems like people actually have a brain. Story 185. Niche subreddits are generally interesting, but Reddit as a whole is the armpit of the internet. Story 186. Make condescending comments to people asking dumb questions and saying dumb stuff. Story 187. It is much easier to find answers to problems when people online have already fixed them, and I can kill time at work with a feed without audio. Story 188. I can vent to strangers about things. I am convinced this is the only way I can find myself. Story 189. Reddit is the best social network for scrolling through interesting posts. I use Telegram, but Reddit offers a better experience. Story 190. Primarily to learn new things about different areas of interest. Second, to alleviate boredom. Third, to watch or read the drama of many people's idiocy for sheer entertainment. Laugh out loud. Story 191. Mainly for National Association for Stock Car Auto Racing news and conversation, but then I get sucked in and read other stuff too. Story 192. 9 times out of 10, it is a fun way to connect with fans of franchises. Story 193. Alleviate boredom, gain new perspectives, get people's reviews of various things, occasionally learn something new, and share interests and hobbies with others. Story 194. It is more rewarding than any other social media, and it is also a way to pass the time. Story 195. A way to talk to people who share my interests. Also cock. Story 196. To see the stupidity of today's youth and weep for future generations. Story 197. I tried to socialize over vast distances, but I'm better off not using it because the hate is unnecessary. Story 198. I like venting and reading other people's thoughts on random topics. It's fun and, in my opinion, better than Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok. Story 199. To laugh at dumb Redditors and learn from the smart ones. Story 200. It is different from other social media. Here people ask questions, request help, and share wild stories. You can learn a lot here. Story 201. Gratification is, I think, also a survival technique, so I'm not yet fully addressing it. I have no idea where to start to untangle that ball of emotion. Story 202. Entertainment, socializing, and information. That is basically it. Story 203. Help, loneliness, and discovering that someone else has faced the same problem and that answers are already available. Story 204. I found it while searching for random questions about running games or other game issues, such as not being able to run a game or beat a level. There is usually an answer and the platform looks nice. Story 205. Mostly for posting foolish comments. Sometimes for finding answers to my foolish questions. Recently, it has just been to keep my streak going. Story 206. I got tired of Facebook and Twitter and switched to Reddit. The bullshit and toxicity are the same. Story 207. Entertainment, and it's not Facebook or Instagram. The only thing I don't like is how each subreddit can become political very easily. Story 208. I used to use it to ask questions, but now I use it when I'm bored to find topics to think about and discuss in the comments section. Story 209. Honestly, it is the only social media platform where I can have an actual conversation without everyone I know in real life seeing it. Laughing out loud. Story 210. Mostly product recommendations and keeping up with tabletop communities, though I have recently left most of them. Story 211. I find it interesting to see other people's opinions sometimes. Story 212. Not going to lie, this is better than other social media such as TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Story 213. I just want to doom scroll, but I despise Facebook and TikTok. Story 214. Interesting subjects and news stories that do not often get told in regular media, and occasionally quite funny responses. Story 215. I like to see what other people have to say about certain topics, though I will admit some of the puns are funny. Story 216. To learn more about my interests, to be able to ask all the questions I want without feeling awkward, and to use TikTok and Instagram less. Story 217. Straight boredom, sometimes for a random fix or fact. Story 218. I like answering questions. I am on a nearly 200-day streak. Story 219. I like to follow crafty people and look at their work. I work at a craft shop and am not very crafty, but I appreciate the craftsmanship of others. I also do this to connect with people and to hopefully make new friends and meet people to talk to. Story 220. It's the only social media platform I have found where people are mostly not as dumb as a potato. Story 221. I am from the era when there were forums for everything. I participated in quite a few until social media started to overshadow them. Reddit is the closest thing. Story 222. Easiest ways to connect. Engage with people equally obsessed with my hobbies. Argue or troll anonymously. Story 223. Mostly video game subreddits. I used to frequent sites like Imagine Games Network and Kotaku. Both seemed to decline in quality years ago. Joystick was the last good website I visited almost every day for video game news, but it shut down about a decade ago. Then Reddit gathered all that information in one place, making it much easier to view and digest. Short answer: video game news and discussions. Story 224. It is just interesting to communicate with people, at least on the internet. I do not communicate with them in real life. Story 225. A safe place to nerd out about my autistic special interests. I have some close family and friends I can do that with in real life, but we all need introvert time every now and then. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.